Hi, everybody, and welcome to our 8th webinar, AI for Education. This is the 8th time I've convened a dialogue around this very exciting and dynamic topic for all of us, and really excited to be welcoming you all to another session. So this is the last of a series that we've been doing this term, and really looking forward to seeing where tonight's conversation goes. We've got plenty more lined up for next term as well. So if you haven't done so already, I can see people joining in the chat and jumping on. And so Sandra, Juliana, Aidan, I can see you, welcome. So first thing, if you're in the chat, just say hi and where you're from. Get used to adding some comments, and we'll be taking some questions hopefully later on. I'm just going to kick off with our acknowledgement of countries. I acknowledge the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which I'm joining you from today, and actually where all of the webinars have been hosted from and designed from. These are the lands where I've been. I recognize their continuing connection and stewardship of lands, waters, communities, and learning, and I pay my respects to the Indigenous elders past, present, and those who are emerging. Sovereignty here has never been ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I also extend the acknowledgement to the lands you're joining from today. This is a great opportunity to connect and learn with each other. I'm delighted to be joined by Emily and Tatiana. Emily, would you like to do a quick introduction?
Hi, everyone, and what a beautiful acknowledgement of country. I think it's a great thing that we can acknowledge that we're all sharing stories, and it's a privilege to be on this land. My name is Emily Connor, and I'm the head of digital learning at Lauriston Girls School. My role, I guess, entails building the digital literacy of not only our students, but our teachers as well. And I think that's really important in our discussion of AI. And not only that, I guess I'm also in charge of building the digital literacy of different areas of our school, like the marketing department, and it's very far reaching. But aside from that, I also work from kindergarten to 6 as a e-learning sort of digital mentor for those students and teachers as well. So it's a very diverse and interesting role. And I certainly started my day with helping the marketing department with setting up their SharePoint site, but then I also went into prep and helped them design some playgrounds for some animals using iPads and digital technology. So yeah, very, very varied role. Tatiana, hi. And Tom,
Emily,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. I mean, Emily, thank you so much. Really looking forward to learning from you tonight. And welcome to Tatiana. Would you like to do an introduction?
Hi, everyone. Greetings from Moldova. Moldova is a tiny country in Eastern Europe, so we don't have lands as you do there. And it is wonderful to hear how you present or do the acknowledgement of your country. But being in this part of the world, I also am responsible for lots of things at my respective school, Heritage International School. So more exactly, I'm the one in charge of hybrid online digital learning. So that's why I'm always curious to know things that appear, the new things in education, so that we can implement them all as a school and do our best, and also to share with the wider community as well. That's why I'm really happy to be here today to learn from you and to share with you all. So
That's great. Tatiana, you're very welcome, and it's lovely to be able to make some real connections in this endeavor. And one of the things I noticed from all of our webinars so far is the international audience and interest. And, it's great to have your insight on tonight's session, this morning's session for you. Welcome to Gerard, who's just joined from South Africa, and Marie is here from Cool Australia here in Victoria. So New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Moldova, here we are in another nice international mix. What I'd like to do now is just set our protocols for our sessions. So if you haven't joined with these sessions before, they're a little bit different than your kind of usual webinar which has a sort of bunch of presentations. This is a dialogue session, so we'll be exploring these topics through some provocations and questions, and sharing as much a discovery for us, and the things that we are learning. This is definitely a process for us to figure out, and we're all figuring this out together. Tonight's run time is about an hour. Say hi in the chat. Use the chat to ask questions. You will get a recording resource, all the resources, and a bunch of other free things that we've kind of all pulled together for you if you're on the original list. Also, I just put a note there, no need to worry about your microphone or an awkward breakout room at the end of a busy day, because obviously you're tuning in on YouTube Live. On the left-hand side, there's this diagram which represents some protocols. And so, Emily and Tatiana, this is also for you, just to know that this is the sort of space that we're creating and holding for this dialogue. So we're going to be hard on the content, soft on people. So we might be critiquing our practice or sharing feedback, but we're doing that in a sensitive way. We're not going to diminish our relationships by offering critique. We're going to be kind, specific, and helpful in our feedback to each other. We're going to step up and step back. So the other side of the diagram talks about participation. So we are going to be mindful of how much we're contributing to the conversation, and you're going to make space for other people, and we're going to try to keep that as much in balance as possible. And then the Chinese character, the traditional Chinese character, ting, for listening, which helps us to remember about how we can be very disciplined about our listening and choose to listen with a view to understand, not to try to be understood or just wait for our turn. So these are our protocols for us tonight, and for most of the sessions you'll ever spend with me doing workshops or anything, we kind of use these to remind us about what makes the difference in terms of collaboration. Is that okay with you, Emily and Tatiana? Is that all right? Great. Okay. All right, folks. So thanks for those who are also jumping. I can see Robin is with us. Dr. Harvez as well from New Zealand, and Carol's joining from a very freezing cold Melbourne. And Robin is also appreciating the tone and my pronunciation of ting. Yep, you better get that one right. So Emily and Tatiana, I've got an opening provocation for you, is just to give us a little bit of information and a bit of context about your own community's access, understanding and use of generative AI. Emily, I'll start with you, if that's okay.
Sure. So I think it's definitely this is changing almost weekly, our community access and understanding and use. So I guess I'll set it up. I feel like it really sort of exploded at the start of this year, so I might go back to that point. So at the start of the year, there was a lot of talk in the media in Australia and Melbourne about the banning of use of ChatGPT, particularly as a generative AI tool in schools. Our school is an independent school, so we did not go down that path. But I assure you that about 3 weeks later, when the teachers did realise that the students were using this particular, generative AI, that they did ban it for the students. However, since then we are in a one-to-one environment here, so all the students have access to technology and bring those to school every day. Whilst it is banned on the students, we have blocked that particular site. We have definitely shifted our focus, and that's been really about building teacher enthusiasm around generative AI and the possibilities of it. So running workshops, afternoon PL, also just finding ways to develop our use of our understanding. It's interesting, in fact, when I thought about it, we've been working with AI and our Year 8 students in developing units of work for perhaps the last 5 years, but it's always been sort of in our technology subjects and not more widely spread. So now what we're seeing is those students were aware of it, but now we're building capacity amongst all our teachers and our students just beyond that sort of Year 8 technology subject where it was before. So we have been building understanding for a long time, but perhaps just in a limited area. And this year has really been about watching, observing, learning, and then building capacity and enthusiasm among our teachers. And now we're starting to develop sort of protocols and guidelines, which I'll talk about a bit later, for our students. In terms of parents, we've also sort of been, developing their understanding as well. And I guess one example of that would be, I don't know if everyone's aware of it, but Snapchat has been using AI technology. And so part of my role is just making parents part of that conversation and building their awareness of these technologies, because a lot of it is unknown to them, and they will wait for their children to experiment with this technology and then react. So I think it's part of our role at schools, as we know, especially if you're hybrid learning, to really build that parent understanding as well. So yeah, community access is we say it's blocked for students, but so we're developing, it's widely accessed, and we're developing our understanding and use as the year goes on.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned there about social media sites. I think this is one of the things so last time we were running a webinar, we were talking about ethics in AI, and there's some interesting conversations and general narrative about the big risks. And I think the real risks at the moment that we have to be talking about are to do with social media use and how AI is starting to change those platforms. So that's something to be for us all to wrap our head around and figure out, how do those social media
well, I'm definitely thinking, if I was like 20 years younger, from what I can tell, I think I'd definitely start a side hustle as an AI girlfriend, because I think you can earn a very good income.
Those synthetic relationships.
But the ethical things of our students going into a world where that might be their norm, to have an AI girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever it is, it's mind-boggling, really. Yeah.
I did hear somebody say that perhaps there's some of our, so this particular generation, some of our students will have more AI synthetic relationships than they will have human relationships potentially in their lifetime. So that's a curious thing for them to imagine. So Tatiana, in Moldova, tell us a little bit about what's been going on with AI, and tell us a little bit about your school's approach to things as well.
So at Heritage International School, like Emily mentioned, we started reading about this new tool, ChatGPT, early in December, and then we started learning more about it in January. So in February, because we are a Cambridge International School, we received the guidelines from Cambridge. And we studied them and looked what can be adapted and brought into our school for our learners. So we have updated the academic honesty policy and made our community students and teachers aware with it, so that they know what is allowed to do and what not. After that, we organized training at Heritage, but it was intended for a national level for all educators in the country, so that they got familiar with these new tools as well. And after that, because we want to make more people aware of ChatGPT, of its AI content detectors and so on, so that the educators knew how to just work with the existence of such a tool. And after that, I delivered some global webinars for our Global School Alliance community, and also another one for COBIS, which is the Council of British International Schools. And again, it was a global audience. And they were really successful, because all educators around the globe want to get familiar and to learn how to tackle these. So if I speak about Moldova's situation, I haven't read anything in terms of guidelines here. Nothing yet from the ministry, but of course, because we participate in many trainings, many educators are aware of these tools. I was asked in May to speak at a national conference for educators called EdTech Moldova, where I spoke about AI tools as well, and how we can integrate or use AI in the classroom. And I totally feel there will be more things to follow, because it's only the beginning, and we can't really pretend these tools don't exist, but we need to learn and to learn from each other, to get inspired on how to do it better, because we can't uninvent them. We can, yeah. So we just need to shift or change our teaching approaches so that we do our best and our learners actually learn, and these tools are being used in a beneficial way, not to look just on the bad side, but on the positive side as well.
Yes.
And we'll speak about these further on.
Yeah. So Tatiana, can you just give us the sort of scale, the size of your school, the type of students you're working with?
Yeah, so we are a private international school. At the moment, we have around 630 students. Both we have primary, secondary, and lyceum. I am teaching Cambridge Global Perspectives, and speaking about ChatGPT, this particular subject is more about doing research, citing sources. It's about lots of writing. So it's exactly where my students have this tendency to go to ChatGPT or to the Bing AI and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Emily, how big is Lauriston Girls?
I've got 1,000, almost 1,000 students. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying how you work with some kindergarten to 6 for digital?
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
definitely sorry.
I was just going to say how that's a story around, the kind of work and the use of generative AI in those particular year groups is something that I haven't seen so much commentary or kind of exposure in terms of examples on.
Sure. So since the start of this year, we really have been exploring the use of these tools with students, and particularly what Tatiana was just saying, because I think it's going to be so much in their lives. And I also think this points to, it's not just about AI, it's really about, in Australia, we have ACARA, and it's the general capabilities. And the CEO of ACARA has come out and said, this moment of teaching AI is really not about just the technology. It's really about teaching critical thinking and all those, and problem solving and creativity, all those things that we have been in our curriculum always, and we speak about them with lip service. I just feel like it's never been more important. And so AI really feeds into that, and my role, and ICT as well, teaching digital literacy. So when we're teaching it in the younger years, my goal is to make them use the tools but focus on citation. For example, I'll give an example if that's all right. So students were writing poetry, and then we used an AI art generator tool to create artwork that would match their poem, and they spoke. And, within that as well, there's a lot around how you actually create a good prompt to generate the artwork that really evokes, the story of your poem, or how you want people to feel when they listen to your poem. And so when we do that, then we have to say, like, are you going to just put that image up there, or say this was an AI generated artwork? So they're playing with it, but they're also realizing, that citation thing as well. And another point on this I'd like to make is, as I teach at a girls' school, there's a huge ethical issue around, especially things like ChatGPT, around who these models are based on. And we know that obviously it's going to be information from the web, which is generated by men overall. So it's really important for girls, and I try and instill that from a young age, to understand how to think critically about the data and whose perspective it represents. So we use another app called Teachable Machine to do that. So to go around generative bias. So that's one of the things we do as well. So I think for girls, it is really important that we get them interested in tech, and never more so than with this, explosion of AI, and understanding that their voices are represented in this. And they're really thinking about the technology they use. So leaning into those general capabilities has never been more important than ever. Yeah.
Emily, what's the art tool that you use with those younger age groups?
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually gave them 2 tools, and then we experimented in trying to get some student voice around what they found best. So we used Stable Diffusion, and we also used Night Cafe. Their preference was Stable Diffusion, and we also used, I just was talking to Tom earlier, they're using this artwork and then creating voices to go with that. So we're using an app called Murph, which they're having a lot of fun with to change the AI generated voices. So it's a bit like the teachers, right? Where like exposing them, getting them excited about all these different tools out there, and then sort of discussing what are the limitations, how could this impact us, what are the future implications. When you start playing with these tools, naturally all these conversation points come up with the students. So yeah, like with EdTech, you are never going to be the expert. The students will, take you there as well. So you've just got to give them, don't spend hours and hours trying to like learn how to use every technology perfectly. Like explore with them and learn with them. They will really feed off your energy. And if you're into technology, which, I'm sure a lot of us are, you will be excited and they will feed off that. And it's a great conversation starter. And yeah, so that's the way I'm kind of going about it with those younger years.
Yeah, interesting how important experimentation is for all of us. I think, if there's people on this webinar thing, in the audience thinking about like, where do I start? There is so much and all of these different choices and all of these different risks. I think the key thing for me that I encourage everybody to do and advocate for is just active participation in this. To be experimenting, to be curious, and to have some personal investment in trying to learn and participate in it. It's one thing to say, to talk about these art generating tools. It's another thing to actually go and create and work in those spaces. And so it's, I really encourage experimentation. Tatiana, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, which is one of the things that we've been sort of lining up and talking about. And that's about how this sort of shift feels different to you. I know that, all of us on the call on this webinar are sort of experienced in integrating technologies in all sorts of different ways. Tatiana, how does this technology feel different to you in terms of its use in education?
As Emily just mentioned, it's about developing skills in our students and teaching a subject that focuses particularly on critical thinking and communication and citing the sources. For me, it is very important to know if the student has genuinely created something or has just used a good prompt in order to generate it and use AI. It's just we need to learn how to tackle these tools, and I'll give some examples of mine of how I do it with the existence of ChatGPT. For instance, I give them some assignments to write some articles on different topics, be it education or be it another topic that we discuss in class. And I had a situation with a student who has sent an article, kind of original, but without using the detector, I could understand that the text was not written by himself. So when I passed it through the detector, of course, it showed me that exactly as I thought, the first and last sentences were created by the student. The other ones in the middle were all created by ChatGPT. The student denied it, but that was the only moment when the student used ChatGPT thinking that the teacher might not know about it. So they learned their lesson, understanding that, this teacher actually knows about its existence, so I can't use it again because she will check it. Another situation was, again, when a student has sent an article submission and it was entirely generated by AI. So I just take screenshots and send back to them on email showing, I don't know what you think, but the detector thinks that it is AI generated. So the student replies saying, no, it's not true. But within 1 hour, that same student sent another article already written by himself, and it was already not as perfect as the first one, but I could feel, because we know their skills and we actually know what they're capable of. Yes, I just get familiar with the new tools that appear in terms of detecting the content. And I ask them to be honest. For example, I had a task for them in using image generating tools. So it was an assignment from United Nations in order to, the task was to how students imagine their future, the green, sustainable, circular future. So it was not mentioned what kind of medium the students could use. So I was happy with them to use AI generating tools as well. So I said, guys, you are free to use any format you wish. So some of them painted, others made some drawings, infographics, and some of them decided to use AI tools such as Bing image creator or DALL-E 2. So the idea was just for them to actually do some good prompts in order to get some good results. Because initially they kind of didn't look very much of a bright future. They had the color green, but not really what was expected. So they kind of improved. And when I submitted the task to United Nations, I mentioned this. I said some of my students decided to use AI image generators. So they were fine with it. They thanked. And this is, I think, what we should be teaching them, just to be honest when they use them, because some tasks really imply using them, like Emily has just mentioned. So it's not about avoiding using them in education. It's on the contrary, it's their future. They need to get ready for those future jobs where, of course, they will be using lots of technology. So we need to get them aware and familiar and comfortable with using these tools.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Tatiana, for sharing some of those examples. Emily, what are your thoughts about this question? I've also, by the way, I can see a bunch of great questions for everybody in the chat. So we're gonna get to those. So thank you, Robert and Carol. We'll get to your questions and I'll put them to the team. But Emily, tell us about how you feel this is different in terms of how does this feel different?
I'll speak to that question then, and I'll just talk back to how Tatiana was talking about checking for, I guess, academic integrity and about our maybe a little bit of a different approach. So, so the technology shift feels completely different. This is not just, putting devices in classrooms. This is impacting our whole lives. For example, in the healthcare system, the CEO of Google has come out and said, the cardiovascular, just this week, there's been technology, AI technology to improve detection of cardiovascular disease. It is impacting our social lives. And I've just given that example of, we've talked about online dating and that whole space and how that's going to be. And students perhaps talking to this technology, thinking that it's a person and not understanding that it is a large language model. So, it's going to impact their social lives. It's going to impact medicine. It's going to impact, our whole way of thinking because, so I just think it is, I saw Sam Altman, Fangirl, speak on Friday, and it was really amazing experience. And he just said, and of course he's a big, of course this guy's going to be into it, but he said, the last 40 years, we have got to see less change than we are going to see in the next 4 years. And that's actually what it feels like. It feels like everything is about to change. Yeah. Everything is shifting.
So, and you wanted to make a comment about academic integrity and just a different approach?
Yeah. So our approach has been that you cannot really, there's inconsistency with these detectors. So there's really we have felt that, students, yes, definitely, your students, so you can tell if it's perhaps not theirs, their actual original work. But our approach has really been, and we're formulating our policies around this now and our guidelines. Our approach is really going to be from developing some ethical use of technology with our students. And so there's a couple of schools coming out with this at the moment where there's some activities, like you said, where they are allowed to use AI. There's others where they are not. And that is something that they then, before they submit an assignment or when they get the task, they're going to have to circle that they understand that this is a task that is to be done without any use of generative AI, or they are permitted to use it for some things, but they must cite by taking photographs. And we got a lot of that from the UK government, came out with guidelines earlier the year, just of taking screenshots and citing where things were from. And so then using that, and the students sort of realizing from the front of the task, so when they're handed the task, this is what the expectations are around AI with this particular task. So they're aware of it then, and then upon submission, they also have to acknowledge that and sign. And I think because we really do have to put the onus somewhat back on our students, they're going into this world and they have an ethical responsibility to understand that. And I feel that's going to be really important as well. Yeah.
Yes, great. So let's hit some of these questions that we've got coming through. So Robert's joining us from Bristol in the UK.
Hi, Robert.
And Robert is asking about the response to parents. And Tatiana, why don't you kick off? But I'd be curious also to hear your thoughts as well,
yeah.
Emily.
Well, the response from parents was brilliant because they totally support us. We did it, for example, we had a couple of parents meetings, and I just popped in and mentioned about this academic honesty policy, but the updated one. And we have our total support from the parents because they also want their children to learn, to get those necessary skills for the future, and not just to plagiarize some content from the internet. We made them familiar with the policy as well as the students. So the parents mentioned that whenever any issue concerning this appear, please let us know. So we know that we have the back of the parents on this too. This is very important.
Very important and interesting to think about. Interesting to think about their experience outside of education is maybe moving even faster than our experience inside the world of education.
100%.
Probably, in their job, they probably make use of AI as well, and they know what we are talking about, or if they want to know, we get them familiar, kind of short trainings. But it's good that the parents support us, and in our policy, we stated clearly what is allowed to be done in class. For example, there are subjects or topics where we we support students, but we give them proper instructions so that they know exactly what they are to do and what they are allowed, and what not. So which consists a breach of rules and how they will be punished for it, so that they know from the start and don't even dare to cheat. And I'm saying this because when I have submitted this spring students' portfolios for Cambridge, they have reflection papers, they have research reports, they have lots of written work. So I told my students, I pass every single document through free plagiarism tools, and one of them is for usual plagiarism, and the other two are for AI content. So my students made some really big eyes hearing this, but I said, guys, don't even dare, because you will have additional work after. So just start working from the start. So that was the thing. Let us hope they get good results now in global perspectives.
Yeah. Emily, what's the sort of vibe with your kind of parent community with all this?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think one of the great things about generative AI is it's really able to personalize learning. So in regard to my own daughter, she has specific learning needs, and we've been developing, I've found that it is brilliant at doing that. So at personalizing learning and coming up with individualized learning plans based on a lot of data that you might not always be able to do, or it just does in a really effective way, and then it frees up time for you to build those relationships and respond and work on activities because you've really used the technology in this way. So I guess I'm talking about that in terms of parents, because I've really tried to focus, while there is that side about the cheating and things like that, I think we've often had that with students Googling their answers anyway. The same students that Googled answers are the ones that are just going to find the answers on ChatGPT. So I feel like we're just trying to build, make our parent community aware, I guess, of social media apps, like I mentioned earlier, but also develop policies like Tatiana said around academic integrity, but also develop awareness and enthusiasm, because as I pointed to earlier, I work at a girls' school and we need girls in tech. And I don't want teachers and parents talking negatively about technology. I need girls out there doing these jobs. So we really try and build enthusiasm around our parent community. So sharing what we've been doing in the classroom. I was just talking to a mother then actually outside, and she was talking about what her daughter had been doing in class. And she actually works in the tech space. And she said, I'm just really scared. It's really scary. I'm like, I know, but it's so exciting as well, isn't it? And so it's just finding that balance, parents are afraid. We're all, we all have reservations, but it's like finding that excitement at the same time amongst our parent community and building their awareness of the positives. But like you said, Tom, yeah, a lot of them are using it. Schools are often a bit of a silo, and we are a bit late responders. A lot of people are using this in their workplaces already. I'll go back to Sam Altman. He was saying that he'd visited 22 countries in 3 weeks, talking to all the world leaders. And guess what the world leaders are using in their day-to-day?
GPT.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, it's moving pretty quickly. So, and actually maybe we can kind of move into talking a little bit about our own toolkit a little bit. I think that I think it's important for us to continue to kind of share the stuff that we're making use of and what so my question to you both is just to share a couple of ideas about what's in your own AI toolkit. And so I know that you'll be sort of helping upskill teachers in all sorts of different ways and sharing different tools. But what is the stuff that you use most frequently? I was actually listening to Sam Altman talk about he just doesn't use anything else apart from ChatGPT, of course. So
I often catch myself Google searching and I'm like, what are you doing? What a waste of time.
So Sam Altman's definitely staying on brand with, his tools. I have a bunch of different tools I'm happy to share, but Tatiana, why don't you start? Tell us what's in your AI toolkit.
Well, actually, I'm often just thinking about it because without being aware, all of us use tools that have AI integrated and we don't even realize it. So I kind of feel a lot of the tools that I use frequently have AI in it. But let us say as a school, because we are concerned about differentiation in the classroom, our school uses Cognity a lot. It is subscription for the whole school, but it really helps our students revise the topics they need for the IGCSE exams. So they have science, they have English, they have lots of maths, they have lots of subjects in there. And this very similar tool is Century, which also creates an individualized path for each student. So we have been using Century just a bit this year as part of the math competition, and it is a wonderful tool as well. I use the assessment tools that have also AI integrated, such as quizzes, which helps provide the instant feedback and get results. Well, I have been juggling a lot with image generators, as I already mentioned several. So ClipDrop, Bing Image Creator, DALL-E, and so on. So there are also lots of tools for lesson planning. I haven't used them yet on a daily basis, but Schemely.app is a very good one, and I will be sharing some links with collections of resources that the educators can use in their daily work, because for different subjects, different tools might be necessary, and it really it saves our time. So if you can benefit from a tool and it will boost your work in the classroom and create more productive lessons, we should be definitely looking into them and using them.
Yes, we'll share some of those slides in a bit, and if you afterwards I'll send all these links and we'll make sure everybody's got access to them afterwards. Thank you for sharing some of those in your toolkit. I was actually just thinking how this question is almost redundant, as like you say, like everything gets AI. You get a chatbot, exactly. Everybody gets a chatbot. So everything is becoming kind of, every conversation, every tool, everything is becoming kind of morphing into an AI tool. Emily, what's in your toolkit? Are you kind of deep in ChatGPT?
Yeah, and I think like going back to this as well, I just think I heard this thing, I just wanted to touch on it, and maybe this is the right opportunity. I'll share, somebody published something which was a on LinkedIn yesterday, which was a presentation you could share with your students. And something really resonated with me in terms of how I'm feeling about it, going back to that parent point. AI or generative AI will help lazy students continue to be lazy. It'll help problem-solving students be problem solvers, and creative people be more creative. And I'm a creative thinker, so for me, that's really how it is. Like, it's helped me be more creative, and I think, yeah, that's just a really important thing to touch on. But I agree with Tatiana as well. Like, when I thought about what AI tools I use, you don't even realize they're AI tools. But I guess one that I always is underrated, and we have a lot of students who are EAL students, and one I think is amazing if you are in the Office suite is Immersive Reader. And it's just a really powerful tool because it makes your language teachers freak out, because it actually can translate anything you do into any language. It also can break the text apart. It can also color code the text into nouns, verbs, and adjectives. So any information you might be sharing with your student on a Word document suddenly is just accessible to every learner in your class. It can
so this is in Microsoft. This is the Microsoft Office suite, right?
In the Microsoft Office suite. So yeah, Immersive Reader, chef's kiss, amazing. And that's like, isn't that one of the most powerful things about technology right now? Like, the curriculum has never been more accessible. And so I used to work a lot in remote areas of Australia. And that's one thing I feel about tech. Like, I know it's not in everybody's hands, but if we can get tech in everyone's hands, like, curriculum is just never been a better time for each learner, no matter, to be more accessible. So I think that's a really powerful tool. You touched on quiz. We use, my teachers are having a bit of a love affair with an app called Quizlet, or Quizalize, sorry. They love it because they do the quiz, and then if they get it wrong, you can have like activities differentiated for whatever score they get, and then they, creates a little learning path for them, and you get all this data. So the teachers loved Kahoot, but I feel that's going to be so 2021. Teachers are now going to be obsessed with Kahoot. No more Kahoots. But I'll teach, and then I'm just going to touch on two that probably people might be aware of, but when you talk about developing awareness, so we had a grandparents' day recently, and I'm like, okay, I want the grandparents to understand a little bit, and they work with their students or their children, their grandchildren, about AI. So we used two apps to do this. We used an app called Quick Draw, which is like, you start drawing, and it's been around for a long time in terms of AI, but oldie but a goodie. So you use Quick Draw and you start drawing, and the AI guesses, the machine guesses what it is you've drawn based on the data. And then you go over to Auto Draw, and it's used that data to then, to create your drawing. So in Quick Draw, a bad explanation. In Quick Draw, it tells you what to draw, and you quickly draw it, and it guesses what you've drawn. And in Auto Draw, you start drawing, and it's like, okay, you've drawn a duck, here's a duck. But that in itself, because it's one machine that feeds into another, it's a really great opportunity to teach AI. So that's Auto Draw and Quick Draw. But other than that, definitely been using a sort of broader picture, and sorry, this is a long answer, but just the CFI framework in terms of, and I said to Tom when we were speaking the other day, I don't think anybody's yet learned how to do a really good Google search. That's still a skill set that my teachers and students struggle with. So now we're just replicating that with the whole, how do we do a good prompt? And I know Tom's been doing with his prompt craft, really aware of this. So one of my number one thing I would say in my toolkit in terms of AI or ChatGPT would be the CIF framework, which is clarify the role, identify the task, and frame the output. So that's been my big thing as well, teaching teachers and students how to do that. Don't just write in there, write me an essay about education, because, crap input, bad output. Yeah. So that's been important. Yeah. And I can share all those resources as well with people. Yeah.
Brilliant. What's your prompt craft like, Tatiana? You've got some skills?
I haven't taught others how to do the prompts, but I kindly recommended Tom's prompt craft to educators in my previous sessions, so that they learn how to update them or improve them when the result is not really good. And I always have fun, as Emily mentioned, about students' results when they do probably a bad prompt, and the result is very general and not exactly to the topic that they have to write about. But listen, this looks exactly the same as introducing keywords when you search on Google engine, because somebody said that the internet is not an equal opportunity for everyone. And as Emily said, those that are lazy will stay lazy, and their results even from ChatGPT will be illustrating that. While those that are good at doing research and doing work, they will kind of create or shape their prompts in such a way that they will get outstanding results as well. So it's learning everywhere. And I don't know why people get so scared about ChatGPT. Of course, it's already another, it's a game changer for writing in different languages. But I think back, as I'm an English teacher, do you remember when the spell checkers appeared, for example, Grammarly or others? I mean, the English teachers were thinking, how will we know that the student has written and this is their own skills, or they have used a spell check and now they have provided a perfect essay and we don't really know that they can write like this. So it's the same with ChatGPT, only a bit further, you know. And I think the only thing we need to do is just to adapt our teaching strategies.
Yes. Yeah, interesting you mentioned Grammarly. I've been using that a little bit more. That's kind of got not just the spelling and grammar stuff. There's actually
I check plagiarism.
all of the there's actually got quite a power. I mean, it's been using AI Grammarly for years and years and years. It's got its own language models. It's got its own engine, but now it's got some more generative capabilities, which are really interesting. And actually is some nice, again, like a layer on top of wherever you are. And that's something I've always said to people is I think when you've got AI capability at your cursor, like exactly where you are, I think that that's when it starts to change. At the minute, we're kind of going to these websites to do these things and then coming back to where we were, or, you know, we have to, I think that the difference when you start to change it up, where Microsoft will have it sort of woven deeply into what you do, when Google Workspace will have it literally in every doc and every space, I think that's going to really change things. I think we're going to be interacting with it in a much more natural way.
I agree.
But listen, I don't know if you have Google Mail, Gmail accounts, but just starting to write an email and the prompts come there to finish the sentence.
The same
That's exactly AI. We don't need to go into other tools.
I think both these points, though, speak to just administrative things, right? And the day-to-day grind of keeping on top of that. And I read some really interesting statistics today that 49% of teacher time is like direct student instruction. The rest of the time is just admin. And so my strong belief so far this year is my creativity has gone up, my ability to create more engaging programs for my students, because I've been using ChatGPT for more the administrative, write the lesson, create this unit of work, giving it the right prompts, respond to this parent email. I now have a bank of amazing parent emails that are way nicer than I would ever be. Of course, you put the thing in there and then you get, get what you need and then, refine it slightly, but it's all that stuff. It's just been, and that's blown my teachers' minds as well. They are just loving that. I think as well, just one more ethical thing there, when you do put parent emails and things like that, it's in ChatGPT, you can turn off data tracking, but just to make sure in terms of our students are online all the time and they're collecting data. So just making sure that the students and yourself aren't using, we really try and minimize personal things that might identify location and names and things like that. So I just think that's always a good point. Stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful if we can prompt in those sorts of ways so that we can focus on the stuff that makes the biggest difference. Okay, so we are kind of heading towards the last sort of 10 minutes of our session tonight, this morning. We are worldwide, so we are crossing time zones. Robert's just made a mention there. Just sort of respond. I'll put Robert's comment up on the screen. The fear is partially down to technophobia amongst a lot of educators going back to calculators. The debate in the UK is very shrill and polarized. Yes, interesting how we have these extremes of responses, and you wonder how that will play out in the future. Lots of interesting to kind of see also with the European Union sort of soon to pass the AI law, which will regulate those high risk applications, and there's lots of reticence for people, big companies launching AI tools in the EU at the moment. So again, you have this big difference going on in terms of access. I'm going to move us on to actually a question that we fielded from responses to the form and those people signing up. And this sort of relates a little bit, and this is about deep work. And so somebody wrote in and asked a question about, so we're using all these sort of tools, but will it, doing stuff quickly, and, will it just mean that we're less able to do that sort of deep work? And I just wondered how you kind of think about this, Emily and Tatiana. Tatiana, why don't you start us off down here, see what you think?
Well, there is a concern about if we think about our students, if they will be used to doing tasks quicker and, for example, not to reflect on the work itself that much, because they will find a easy way of doing things. But actually, I go back to what I said about our shift in teaching, because that critical thinking is crucial, and we actually need to make them aware that learning is not for just getting some grades the easy way, but it's about getting skilled for their future. So yeah, I don't know if probably for some it will definitely be not going too deep into what they're doing. About jobs in general, probably it might tend to make people a bit lazy, but I'm not sure about it, because probably it will change the face of our jobs. It will change the face of student learning. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change our relationship with learning, potentially our relationship of how we think of our capabilities.
Yeah, but at the same time, as Rob mentioned about the calculators, when they appeared and when the math teachers were protesting back in time, it's kind of a bit similar, because it's something new that appeared. It scares, of course, because we need to adapt, and probably as the math teachers did, this is how we will all do with ChatGPT and a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, Emily, about your point about becoming more creative. And I'm keen to hear what you think, Emily, in a minute about what this question about deep work. But just what it made me think about was how when I think of all of the different tools that I have at my disposal, when I'm faced with maybe a kind of a significant task that's going to require a big kind of lift, I'm actually feeling much more confident and capable because I can use these tools. So for me, there's less cognitive load even before I start. I worry less. I can get through more. I can work quicker. I can, I just think it's interesting, that kind of shift in the way that we see our own capabilities and what you can actually achieve in the time that we have, And so even thinking about tasks I'm changing the way I even think about, the scope of tasks. And, I think that's just an interesting way that these tools are changing our dispositions.
That's a really wonderful point. I totally agree with that. And I also think in terms of deep work, if we're using this technology to process data and get through this information, doesn't that free us time to solve, Sam, to solve the world's really big problems? In terms of teachers, we need to shift our thinking of, teachers spending a lot of time for students being the person that knows all the knowledge. No, let's empower the students. We no longer are the people that know all the knowledge. there are machines out there, but what we can do is, guide you and, go beyond just helping you memorize facts. We can really teach you to think and allow those opportunities. We can provide opportunities where you develop, your group work skills, which are going to be really important going forward. We can provide opportunities for you to really develop adaptability and how you respond to challenges, because like I said earlier, like there's going to be this huge change. So that's going to be important. So teachers' roles are really going to have to shift off the like, here I am, I have all this information and now I'm going to give it to you, to like, how can I really foster those, 21st century, how can I create that environment in my classroom? And I think teachers, like you said, Tom, I do feel free to make those, to work on things that are big picture ideas, because my time is freed up. I think, and we've always had this argument about like, we used to hunt and gather for food. Humans are always going to have problems. It's just like they're just different problems, right? And technology will move on and will replace it. This is a huge technology that is really going to change things. But, like the spell check is one example, but there's a lot of the advent of computers, and, that we can look on for as long as we've been alive. There's been this change and shift. This is hopefully going to be one, given the state of play of our world. I am very much an optimist in the believer of humanity that this will be something where the technology can be used to solve some of our bigger problems. And you might say I'm living in la la land, but that's how I'm feeling about it.
I appreciate that position. Tatiana, are you positive and hopeful?
I am. Actually, I have seen a nice comment here from Aidan. He says, I'd like to think that we can work smarter and maybe not quicker, and putting the energy in the right things or in the right places. I totally believe this is the case. It's like the same way when machines were invented and people started not doing the physical work, but focusing on the smart tasks, So it's something very, very similar, I'd like to think. So yeah, I'm optimistic about it. It's just we need to learn how to use them wisely.
Yes. And Tatiana, you've been working really hard to kind of support teachers in your communities. And you wanted to share maybe just a couple of resources. Should I pop some up on the? Let me put them up on here. Tell us some of these resources. Tell us about some of these resources.
This is a Wakelet collection from Ariana Blazik. She's a wonderful educator from Croatia, teacher trainer from European SchoolNet. And she has made this collection of different AI lesson plans already made for us, and many other learning activities. For example, I have used my students speaking about jobs and the future of work. We have used this tool that you see here in the screenshot, How Normal Am I? Because we were discussing how some jobs, using facial recognition and how we look, choose people for different, there are such jobs. And they were really impressed with the result they got, because, well, it's not how normal, it's how different you are. Each of us is independent and individual. So this is a wonderful collection for you to look at. We will share the links in the chat. And can you go next?
This way.
These are also some tools and technologies to be used in the classroom, and some of them are designed for certain subjects, for example, for science or for English language, or for and some are in general for all subjects in the curriculum. So here you can see a collection about with articles about artificial intelligence, because many educators have this ethical issue about using AI. So if you are still in doubt, you definitely need to read some of these articles to see the beneficial part of using AI. Can you please go next?
So this is an ethics course, isn't it?
Yes, this is a course from the University of Helsinki. It is free of charge, and you shouldn't be a student at the Helsinki University to get into it. It takes maximum 5 minutes to get registered and to get the access. But it has 7 chapters, and it's about starting with what is AI and how we can use it, and what is good and bad, and who is responsible, who is accountable for the use of it, and
I mean,
for us to understand better whether it is good or not, and who is collecting the data, is data collected, how much, and so on.
Awesome.
So it's a very good course. Yeah,
this is from the EU, isn't it? Some of these.
This is the ethical guidelines on using AI, and it was published in September 2022. And actually, it tells on how educators can use AI in the classroom and how students can use AI in the classroom. And here are some good points about sharing with the wider community and discussing with colleagues in our schools, outside the schools, and globally. And it's exactly what we're doing at the moment.
The kind of EU, the EU resources are pretty rich. I mean, they've obviously been working up to where they are now for a long time, and we've recommended some of these, and this ethics one is a great resource. It's got some lovely elements to it.
European Commission has a kind of a task force, a group of educators interested in AI, and I'm also part of it. So if you feel interested, you can register, and there in the forum you can see lots of resources shared between educators.
Is there
next one?
Yeah, Tatiana, we're just running out of time. Is there maybe just one more that you want to share from this?
Yeah, the last
slide?
one is
it these two?
These are some people. No, this one. The next slide.
Yeah, this one.
Yes. So this is another collection from Ariana Blazik and Bart. So for different types of tasks, there are collections of AI tools. For example, if you press on chatbots, you'll find ChatGPT and many others. And this is updated daily. For image generators, you see a collection of tools for videos creating, for speech and audio, for lesson planning, for presentation, games, etc. So please feel free to use it because it is a very rich collection and it is work in progress. Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Amazing. So we'll kind of gather some of that together, and with Tatiana's permission, we'll share some of those.
Absolutely, yeah.
We'll share
You're
that.
welcome.
And I know how long it takes to curate and stuff, so really grateful and appreciate you being willing to share that with the audience of these sessions.
Welcome.
So we're coming to the end of our time together tonight. Emily, would you like to share any final kind of comments or anything else that we haven't spoken about that you'd like to make a final comment about?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to Tatiana. I'm like, oh, those resources look wonderful. I can't wait to share them with my community. But I guess in terms of sharing resources, one of the things I've found is, just curating those resources and finding a place to store them and not overwhelming teachers in my school with too many things. And that's been, I guess, one of the hard things to approach this with enthusiasm, but also be mindful that some people aren't feeling so enthusiastic. So just part of what I've been doing is just holding sort of fortnightly breakfast meetings and just, making those available to the teachers who are keen. And what I find is in terms of adopting new technology, not just AI, is you get those early adopters and they get a bit enthusiastic and then they will spread the word around your school community. So I think that's been a good part of the approach. But yeah, I've definitely appreciated listening to your ideas and sharing your resources. So it's been a really great professional learning experience for me. So thank you so much.
That's great.
Thank you, Emily, as well.
Tatiana, what's your final comments, Tatiana?
I love Emily's just comment about fortnight breakfast with staff and sharing some nice ideas. So I will probably jump into this idea in August.
Bribe people with food and mugs. Actually, I got mugs made up so that they walk around with the mugs so people know to come to
branded.
Yeah, exactly.
Another way of teaching and learning briefings. We
actually
had them every Wednesday. We had them for the past 3 years in video recordings format, shared on the email because of the pandemic. But before it, we met every Wednesday morning in the auditorium and had 10-15 minutes sharing one resource or one tool to be used in the classroom with our colleagues. So probably we'll be going back to the mugs and sharing some ideas while getting together.
10-minute huddle is a good idea as well, though. Just a quick meeting. People don't want to spend their lives in meetings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tatiana, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It was a pleasure, guys, to talk to you all.
And Emily, thank you for at the end of the day, joining us and participating. Really appreciate you too.
Pleasure. Thanks for organising it, Tom. Great to be
All
a
right.
part of. Yeah.
So folks, that's a wrap for tonight. And also this is season 2. So season 2 is a wrap. So this is the 8th dialogue session. These are all available for free on my YouTube channel, which you're probably looking at right now because that's where they're published. So I think I meant to say like and subscribe. I mean, that's the thing, right? I meant to sort of say that. But there's a streaming or live tab on the channel. And so you can see all 8 of the webinars. And I really encourage you to kind of dig in there. It's all free and you can kind of find snippets that you might be able to use with your professional learning sessions. I'm planning on new sessions next term. So Australia is kind of coming to the end of term 2, and I'll be looking to probably run another 3 or 4 sessions in term 3. So season 3 is going to be back, and I'm sort of looking forward to kind of having and holding more space for dialogue with educators about artificial intelligence. So thanks again for joining on the live stream. Thank you again to Emily and Tatiana. And we'll see you all again.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.